Boom. And we're live. Welcome, Mathis. I appreciate you making the time to chat with me. So thank you so much
Yes,
for making the time. How you doing?
it's a pleasure. Yeah, good and you.
Let's skip over the small chat.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Like I know you are currently studying law, so let's dive right into it. What made
Well,
you get
yeah.
interested in the field of law?
Well, I'm not studying it right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a work in process to get accepted in law school.
Mm.
So we could talk a bit more about my purpose, let's say. So my purpose to become a lawyer would be to try and make everything equal for everyone. That's the basic job of a lawmaker
Mm.
or a lawyer. And that's basically the sole reason I want to pursue that. Yeah.
So to make to make things better.
Well, yeah, and to make people who may feel a bit left out feel included uh, in the world, let's say.
Mm. And where does this desire come from? Have you experienced some, let's say, injustice within like your life of feeling left out?
Uh, Not really,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never I've never really fit in, let's say, and uh, also, I have to say my mom is a lawyer, so I have
Uh,
this like big influence. So
mm,
yeah, that's where it comes from.
that's amazing. How much of
Yeah,
that? So the desire is directly correlated with the influence of your mom.
yeah, for sure.
Mm.
I see her working all the time. Makes me want to pursue that also.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is that how you base like kind of like your the construct of how you behave? Would you state that your mom is your role model?
Ah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Also, uh, I that's that's gonna sound a bit stupid, but Jordan Peterson also is. So let's
Mm.
say um, by watching his video, his like podcast, I
Mm-hmm.
think he makes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, podcast. Yeah, that really made me want to pursue law because of the topics he talks about.
Mm. What are some of the topics that that really you know spark that
Uh,
interest?
Mostly, like let's say politics, conspiracy. So if I'm going into law, I want to be able to like make corporation pay what they have to do, what they owe.
Mm.
So I want to make sure like the corrupted side of politics is controlled.
Mm.
I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah. So are you at unease with how the mass of the people are affected by, let's say, the greed of corporations?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And you're stating that your impact, your something that you strive is to alleviate some of the corruption.
Alleviate, yes. Uh, Maybe even like counter
Mm.
if I were to make an impact when I become a lawyer, I would like to like counter to resist to it.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's a that's a worthwhile aim and pursuit, and that's
Yeah.
truly admirable.
It's a
And
big goal.
yeah, it is. It is a lot of burden, a lot of responsibilities, but I'm sure it's it's going to be worthwhile, no matter what resistance, whatever, what challenges that you face. That's
Yeah.
yeah. I don't really talk like too much about like the impact of kind of like this career of I guess like my
Mm.
field of economics, but something that I'm truly fascinated about is the system, like being more aware of the system that we live in, as well as like the incentive like mechanisms, the puppet masters that pull on the strings of like how we function. And I think like one
Yes.
ways uh, that I constantly think about is how can we create a system worth striving and fighting for to kind of reach a better state or mm, a more accessible, more equal world. Although that seems like, like a utopian state. I feel like it just
Yeah, that is.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's a. I believe we all want. Uh, we all really want good, but sometimes we take actions that go into the dark side, let's say.
Yeah.
So towards bad.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's just like a human tendency of people to go towards
Uh,
bad, or even
yeah, I
with the
think it's
knowledge?
a
Hmm.
well, I think it's a bit of both. You have like this big social influence
Right.
on one hand,
Hmm.
and you have the like moral uh, let's a moral compass.
Hmm.
So you'll have to balance both, and if your social influences
Hmm.
are much stronger than
Hmm.
your morals, then you may become a bit unbalanced
Mm.
because you're gonna fall into the trap of being influenced, whether it be positively or negatively. Well, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. I think the moral compass, like everybody does have a moral compass, but oftentimes it's easy to forgo that in order to fit in or to conform to, your environment, or, to value it less, let's say. For example, if you're
Yeah,
encountering someone that you're just attracted to, you might not, you might forego some of, I mean, I feel like this is just one example of where people would are willing to not really look into, the value aspect of things, because they want to be accepted. And I think that is.
yeah, because
Mhm.
value is deeper than is deeper than action. Because like one of my favorite sayings by I think it was Socrates who said that like smart people uh, act and dumb people talk. So
Mm.
that's a bit a resume of my like approach on life. Like I want to be someone who does things, not only talks about things. I want to be like doing stuff.
Right. And what does that doing entail? It entails something along the lines of combating, I guess, or the resistance. Who is the enemy of like attaining? What are some obstacles that prevent you from getting to a state? I feel like uh, an ideal that you aim for is recognizing some of the chaos that presents in current society in terms of corruption. I feel like, or maybe there's a whole verse of issues that you see in current society, or your local, your community, and it seems like you have a strong desire to change that. And I'm not sure if, like, what the core issue is that you want to combat, but what
Yeah.
would you state like is like the some of the challenges that you will be facing as you plan to do instead of talk.
The first one is convincing myself to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And second, I think it would be the fear of rejection or judgment,
Mm.
because that's pretty generic as a excuse, but I think it makes sense to most people.
Fair.
Is that a good answer?
No, no, yeah. I mean, there is no like right or wrong answer, I think, in any of these. I'm just like trying to grasp like the origin, or I guess like the root of where the desire and where you're headed is kind of coming from.
Well, I don't think I even have the answer.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's perfectly
uh,
fine. I think just by having the conversation, you're able to kind of recognize, how deep the roots go, and I guess like where you
yeah.
want to. And at times, it's okay that you don't have a destination or you have uh, a set goal. I think the process of it is just recognizing recognizing that the process, the journey of it is much more important. No matter like where you finally end up in, it doesn't really matter. What matters is like the choices that you take based upon like the circumstances that you are granted, you know? Because I feel
Yep,
like,
and
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead.
Right. Like I wanna, let's say that you have to stand up straight for yourself in a sense that even if like obstacles come by, you have to stand up straight and to face them, and to like not give up because of, let's say, a rock. You hit your foot in into a rock, like it doesn't
Yeah,
make sense.
yeah.
You don't stop because you bump your foot into a rock.
Mm-hmm. And what do
That's my
you?
whole,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's your whole premise of like looking at challenges or any obstacles.
Yeah, you have to overcome them, even if it takes you, let's say, 50 years. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care. I'll do it.
Yeah. And do you think you maintain this like perspective throughout your daily life?
For sure, there are some moments where I feel like I could only give up. But let's say I had a really bad grade in the exam a couple of weeks ago, and I felt terrible.
Mm.
But now that I think about it, I and being stoic, of course,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I try to make the most sense out of it, to learn to face obstacles and surpass them.
Mm. I also want to talk a little bit about stoicism later on, but let's try to talk about the negative like feeling you feel. Something that I realized about like ambitious, hyper ambitious people, hyper productive people is like they're I feel like they're on like almost a time constraint of like
Yeah,
they like people, you know, hyper productive people, they for example might not want to reveal their age because or they might, you know, lower it because they want to always be outperforming compared to peers or you
yeah,
know other
I get
reasons,
what you're saying.
right?
Yeah,
And I do think that it's so easy to fall into that kind of cycle of wanting more and more and more. But I feel like in part I could realize at times that my desires are also constructed by the people that I also surround myself with. And I think it's so hard if you don't have a certain aim and let other people kind of dictate how you perceive and how you want to live out your life. I guess this is like
yeah,
a different take, but I really do question like how important it is to have a definite goal because I feel like it's okay, like
yeah,
it's okay to not have it determined, but the journey of it all, it's much more important for me personally. But I feel like just the interaction with so many students is like, what is your end goal, what is this purpose? Because I don't know, people, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the curiosity factor. Maybe it's the doubt. Maybe I don't know what it is, but I think people have a tendency of always having to get to a certain destination. By no way am I saying like goal setting is bad, but I think like the goal setting is important, but I also think that it's just as important to be flexible and recognize that there are going to be challenges, there are going to be confusion, there's going to be all sorts of things, and that's just like the process of it all. Um, yeah, it's something that I'm just like reflecting,
yeah.
but yeah.
Uh, yeah. So basically, you're saying that setting goals isn't necessarily the best way to accomplish them, because uh, you could be uh, let's say, too ambitious towards what your capacity are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's completely
So
okay. It's like again, you don't have to be like hyper ambitious. It's okay to live a more balanced life, and it's okay to not want the same things as what majority or what the society tells you that you should want. Like
yeah,
it's completely okay to be lost, and it's just a part of recognizing where you are and deciding where you want to go. And like within it, within that journey, like you're going to recognize that maybe it's not the path for you. And even if you set out a certain aim, let's say you want to get a really high mark on your exam because of, you know, the reason why you feel a pang of guilt and like a feel of shame and not the lack of validation and whatever negative emotions you feel from getting a score is not because of the number itself. It's because what it represents behind it, right? It's the meaning behind it. It prevents you from attaining the progression of so-called like the path of becoming a lawyer or becoming a doctor or a plumber, technician, any jobs. Like it's what it represents. Like in that aspect, I recognize it. But if humans if students are able to really be aware of their time horizon, then it's like in the grand scheme of things, it really isn't like such a huge detriment.
Yeah.
But I know that, you know, like I do it as well. It's so easy to just get lost of it, and some might say, no, you're lucky to say that. I have to work XYZ, but there you could make, you know, countless and countless of just excuses. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like I don't really have like an argument here, but I'm just reminding that it's gonna be okay. And I just feel a lot of let's say anxiety that from my interaction, like being like more interacting with more and more students just recently.
Yeah, and most of the time when you encounter a very confident student, me- most of the time he'll be saying stuff that he doesn't even, let's say, believe.
Mm.
Like I've been there. I've told people that like I would become like the greatest lawyer and
Mm-hmm.
make tons of money.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I really don't most of my time believe in myself, and that is why I stopped saying all that stuff, because I want to be able to do things that make me confirm let's say, the things I couldn't confirm myself in the past. So by basically accomplishing stuff, stuff would be like having good grades, or because I'm focusing on good grades because that is what it takes to enter law school. That's
Mm-hmm.
the only way I could enter it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't care about like your, let's say, effort into having good grades. It's only the grades,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I have a lot of pressure right now, and that's basically why started learning about Stoicism, to basically that we'll talk about
Yeah, let's
more
just talk about
later
it
on.
right now. Let's just talk about it. What how do you define stoicism and how do you apply it in your life? How would you find it
Well, that the
actually?
thing,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the thing is, I don't have a definition for it. I think it's more of a way of living,
Mm-hmm.
not a religion or like a way of thinking.
It's a
It's more of a
philosophy.
way of living.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, way of living could it applies that you have to stay rational, not let go of, let's say, bad emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't even know what a bad emotion is, but just let go of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of like how I perceived stoicism is that it's a philosophy which has
Yes.
its origins in from the Roman Empire, and maybe even prior to that. I'm not sure how rooted like my understanding of the history of stoicism is, but it the greatest like practitioner that I've seen was through Marcus Aurelius from Meditations, and I'm sure like people within
Yeah.
who have heard this book, it's been very popularized within the media, within even I think FDR whenever he would go to wars, like I'm pretty sure he had a copy. Like a lot of great people like study Stoicism and practice it, and it's because of what it represents. The
Yeah.
pretty much like to give a rundown of Mr. the great Emperor Marcus Aurelius's life is he had it all, like in terms of status, in terms of wealth, in terms of relationships. He had so many vices and temptations as well within his life, but he did not really succumb to it. And he had a lot of health struggles as well. Like being an emperor is no joke. He had betrayals, and
Yeah,
through it all, he writes in his book of meditations, which is kind of like a journal within with himself. It wasn't meant to be kind of like shown, which gives the book itself like so much meaning, because you could see that it's a true like personal reflection. And I think we discussed this prior, which is like he talks about like of how comforting, I actually felt this today, like of like how comforting the sheets are. And he talks about how the ladybug,
yeah,
or like there's animals, the sun will rise anyway. The He talks about the
yeah.
different
Life
duties
goes
that
on.
animals have
Life goes
to
on.
pursue, and that you also have a duty as a human being, um, to just live with purpose and lead by a kind of example, which he kind of talks about, of recognizing what you're in control, and to disregard the things that are not within your control, to reflect upon your mortality. Actually, like the I mean, I don't really like it's like talk too much about like this, because I'm still learning about it. But a reminder that I try to tell myself is always like reminding yourself of how short life is. Like the phrase "memento mori," reflect upon your mortality, is. I mean, it could be a little tragic of someone like young like
Yes.
us, but we're um like thinking about death. Like, why would you do that? You're such a healthy person, but truly at times it you take it for granted if you're not practicing it, you know. And there's so many like, I
Mm.
guess, like gems and wisdom that you could derive from, and within the study of Stoicism. And not only Stoicism, but so many different religions. Like I hear bits of even Buddhism, that life is suffering. And also like I talked about a little about this with Slade, which is that the root of suffering is desire. And like all of these pieces, it's like it just makes you better appreciate, or better grasp like how the negative emotions, in your interpretation of the world, like how I guess, in a way for me more selfish, because I really have, it's so easy to succumb to like the victim's mentality literally every single day. And yeah, just negative emotions, just not doing what you should be, even though you know it. And for me, I
Yeah.
guess like Stoicism is kind of like that way of learning more about yourself, and also how to navigate within this life.
But Stoicism is also living with wisdom and believing in justice. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say that, well, that makes sense with maybe wanting to go into law
Mm-hmm.
and believe at the same time in the Stoicism. So I guess we could make a correlation here. But yeah, the meaning of Stoicism is like the meaning I'm trying to find. So, well, I don't even know what I'm trying to find. That's the like beauty of finding something.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a bit vague, but you get what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, but I want to kind of nitpick from with your perspective on that. So you're seeking, but you don't know what you're seeking. How
Yeah.
do you like how do you perceive the view, like I guess like your meaning of life? I know that you're still seeking it, but
Oh.
you it seems like from like prior conversations, like you have a very uh a nihilistic view of the world.
Yeah. Uh, I feel like purpose and goals are
Mm-hmm.
very different. In the sense that purpose is more what gets you out of your bed every morning, and goals is what makes you finish the day strong.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a kind of a weird way of looking at it, but uh, when I feel tired or I I don't want to study, I remind myself, uh, it could be with a picture or even a book that this is like my passport to become what I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, I use conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Like I basically conditioned myself to being disciplined.
Mm. And do you derive like positive emotions from that conditioning because it reminds you of the ideal that you could achieve?
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, conditioning is a big, big, big part of how you raise children. So uh, I guess my parents rose me with a very moral, uh, strict moral philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I am able to study hard and to like resist uh, temptations,
Mm-hmm.
which I was very bad at before.
Can we
That's
talk
pretty
about, let's
bad.
extrapolate upon some of the bad the bad stuff, not only the good, but we also have to shed light upon, of the
Yeah,
state we're in because, you know, it's so easy to, like, at least when I was like stuck in a loop of just countless of social media, video game, pornography addiction, like that.
yeah,
When I would see people who seems to have cracked the code, like, and it didn't really register that anyone is truly like capable. I'm like, yeah, this is nothing. But at times I feel like it could definitely help if we also talk about the same struggles, because maybe we could state, people could make these justifications of like, oh yeah, this person, their parents gave them their values, this happened, like there could be some justifications, at least. Like, I'm thinking about my younger self and how I justified people who were doing well, or the negative emotions that I just held, like prevented me from, I guess, like opening, or just, changing.
yeah. And I have a pretty big tendency to like take all the negative emotions and push them down.
Yeah.
And once it's full, like the next person who makes the basket fuller, like gets it all.
Mm.
Like
So you
it's
just give a nice
horrible.
slap in the face of some innocent person that like bothered you for a little bit, and
Yeah,
you just slap them with all of the hatred, all of like the worst emotion possible. Man,
yeah.
that must be painful.
Well, my aura, let's say, if I had a Dragon Ball Z aura,
Yeah, yeah.
it would be it would be like very red and dark
Oh boy.
because I have all that like uh, antisocial type of vibe that's over my head,
Mm.
and that's I'm trying to work on it.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk a little about some of the addictions or some of the uncontrolled aspects of your
Yeah,
life, because I know you're still very very young, and it seems like you have kind of structured, or shifted your
yeah, I've
mentality. Yeah.
yeah, made a big shift.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it all began when I was uh, 13 or 14.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember correctly, but I started playing video games online with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, I was still playing hockey
Mm-hmm.
and exercising regularly, so I would like balance it out, you know.
Right.
But then uh, I think I was 15. Well, where all everything peaked at its highest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was playing video games like I don't know 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
So that would be from morning till school starts,
Mm-hmm.
then schools end,
Mm-hmm.
and till like midnight.
Yeah.
So that would be terrible.
Yeah.
And my mom used to like bring my PS4 in her room.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't touch it,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt so angry towards her for
Mm.
doing that, and to this day I still regret it
Mm.
because that really made me question my, let's say, so-called
Mm-hmm.
addiction that I didn't really know I had.
Right. I resonate with that so deeply because there's times where, like, living with host families as well, where I would lie and deceive myself. And
yeah,
it's only in hindsight. You don't know that you're addicted. You don't know you have a mouth that you're constantly feeding. It's only after you break out of it that you perceive, let's say, so-called reality in a different perspective, because you have a little construct, that a little bubble that you have made, and how can you realize that you're inside a bubble without recognizing or
yeah,
stepping out of it.
yeah. Um, let's say stepped out of the bubble, uh, let's say 2 years ago.
Mm.
So that would be, yeah, I was maybe 16, around 17-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And I started going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So I started because I was very, very skinny. Like I used to be so uncomfortable in my skin.
Mm.
I was chronically skinny, so I was 5'11", like 112 pounds, so
Right.
very light.
Yeah.
112 pounds, and I think it's like 50 kilos,
Mm-hmm.
55 kilos,
Mm.
so very light. And yeah, going to the gym and seeing results really made me step out of the bubble and think that that is what saved me uh, from from it. But also school. Like I started seeing myself loving, not loving, but being more and more interested in school stuff like literature, economics, law, and so forth.
Mm. So from that shift, like as you decided to start hitting the gym, seeing kind of also like the results, the instant. I mean, of course, it took probably a lot of time and consistency to get to a state where you're seeing gradual progress, but all of those small, tiny steps has allowed you to also be interested in other aspects. So it kind of has like a spillover effect in being interested about literature,
Yeah,
law, and just that's when you started to value education more for what it is.
yeah, totally. And uh, I forgot, I completely changed my friends.
Mm,
So like I had very like high school friends who were leaning towards video games and partying. Well, I never really went to parties because
mm-hmm.
I'm not that kind of guy. But uh, so I used to stay home and play video games while everyone was outside.
Yep.
And and I think it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
I saw you made a video online about on YouTube about addiction.
Yep.
So when I saw your video, I was like, "Oh, this is me in the past. Like this is so
Mm,
accurate." Like I was seeing myself uh, in your eyes of like you were talking about how you escape it, let's say, uh, the addictions, and yeah, it really made me. That's where I started like watching your YouTube videos also. Like
I'm
yeah,
so happy that I mean usually like a bad thing about me is like I get so invested so easily within I get hooked really easily. That's why I'm so influenced.
yeah,
Like and that's why I still struggle with like how I utilize my time with YouTube. Um just like I'm really bad with it because I'm just fascinated by things and it just pulls me in. I,
mm,
I mean, I say this because like I still struggle with it, and I know that it's gonna take months. I, I and I constantly go in relapses, but I'm so glad that like you that what I spoke had some impact and some value because I do think
yeah,
like it's not something that only one person struggles with. I think this is millions and millions of people who really cope with and who struggle with the same addiction that we deal with. I truly do believe in this modern era with this digital space and with lack of guidance and with lack of moderation. If you don't have that, I guess that oversight, it's so easy to justify and kind of create like your own bubble and be comforted in that by also even having people that also reinforces that worldview, and that's why it's it truly is a trap, and you have to be aware of it. But if you're in it,
yeah,
at times you're just blind. You're blinded by it. It's kind of like the Plato's allegory of the cave of you're being the puppet masters, and
yeah,
you're just watching what's happening on the cave, and it is like sometimes that the duty of the people who have, you know, gone through gone through it and came out of the cave to go back down and share how to. And for me, like I also resonate with you in terms of some people that have really influenced me, and without having a father figure of who could provide values for me, I found it within like books. For example, the three people that there's multiple, there's so many people that you could learn from, even little kids that you could derive. Like,
yeah,
oh my goodness, how could you even have this perspective, or like, wow, look at you. This the curiosity that you hold is incredible. But for me, it was like a lot about Mr. like David Goggins and having like that victim's mentality and actually like doing something about it. For me, I like also resonate with like the working on your physical health, because it helps really boost your self-confidence and how you perceive yourself and how you want to portray yourself to others. And Mr. Dr. Peterson as well, because I mean some of his takes could be definitely controversial, but I feel like
yeah,
his book like 12 rules for life, it has a framework of really just good rules to live by. Who doesn't want to put your shoulders back straight, stand up for yourself, compare yourself not with others but who you are with yesterday, surround yourself with people who want the best for you. There's just so many like basic things that I wish that I have like learned or could have gained, but I didn't. Nor was I like open to learning it. It's only after you go through some of like the pains and some of the darkness that uh, you see what the opposite, the light at the end of the tunnel, that makes it just sweeter, something that you want to strive for and worthwhile. um
yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Um, the 12 Rules for Life book really like helped me, let's say, uh, make sense into chaos.
Mm.
So, uh, shout out to Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. In terms of chaos,
Uh,
what made you like, how did it make you more aware of chaos?
at the book.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the the first rule, which is to stand up straight.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's wait a minute, I have it here. Uh,
It talks about
yeah,
like lobsters, I think, like fighting as well as
yeah, 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 lobsters.
that was such a good.
The whole book is a metaphor of lobsters.
Really?
So yeah, it keeps coming back.
Oh, I see.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a big metaphor
Mm-hmm.
of like the lobster, and the lobster being jealous, and the lobster being competitive, and the lobster being less red than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very, very smart to have made a book uh, with like a big metaphor in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty great that he did that.
Yeah, for sure. And you talked a little bit about some of the uh, like letting go of people as well. And
Yeah,
like when did you realize that like parties or whatever your peers were doing that didn't really interest you? I feel that a little bit now, like at least like by going into like a public institution where there's so many well versed amount of people, I get distracted so easily because I'm like,
yeah,
oh man, there's like consuming like what other people are doing, and making me wonder like, am I experiencing like, because every human has a fear of fear of missing out. That's such a huge thing.
yeah,
People talk about, oh yeah, in your 20s you're supposed to take risks, you're supposed to do XYZ. And it also, depending on your environment, if you're in a hyper productive environment where constantly your work is enforced, work is the only thing that and it's not what you desire, that could really feel like a trap. That could really, and you might not like be aware of it. And sometimes it does feel suffocating. At times, sometimes I feel like I'm running on a treadmill. If I
Yeah.
just allow others to dictate, or I get confused. I just lose track of what is truly important. And yeah, that
Yeah.
balance. How?
More of a
Mhm.
running on a moving train. It's very
Mm,
chaotic, and like you have all the force
yeah,
that's like pushing against you, and you're trying to like push forward, but it's there.
yeah,
So yeah, a bit of physics to
yeah.
making use of physics.
And how would you say like you grasp the world, or how do you understand, how do you behave in the world, recognizing the forces that pushes back, that constantly wants you to move, and like how do you find that balance within yourself?
Uh, I actually have a three step rule.
Oh, okay.
It's very elaborate.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So firstly, I don't let anyone phase me. So
Mm-hmm.
I like to remind myself to not be, uh, let's say, quote unquote, phaseable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if that's a word, but let's say not phaseable.
Right.
Secondly, I try to put resistance
Mm-hmm.
or ignore. So let's say someone is trying to push me back by saying like a like a very meaning comment.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, in my better my most, let's say, focused day of the week, I would just ignore him and continue doing my work.
Mm-hmm.
And the third rule is to make them make them make the resistance regret attacking me. So
Mm-hmm.
I it's a bit harsh,
Mm-hmm.
but let's say I'll try to make sure the challenge doesn't come twice.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a bit of a psychology here, which I'm sure you've heard of Jean Piaget,
Mm-hmm.
which made the developing intelligence
Mm-hmm.
theory.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we discussed earlier, um, like intelligence is mostly not making mistakes twice.
Mm-hmm.
So making the same mistake twice makes you less intelligent,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't really know if that's true,
Yeah, in
but
that instance, I'm truly a primal monkey who based
yeah.
their decisions. I am not, by this definition of someone who is intelligent, not making mistakes. I would have failed.
I would too.
Yeah, even today, I'm like uh, by not structuring, like of reviewing what I have to do today, just watching stand up comedy, and just like falling into I have probably consumed like 3 hours within, of doing errands, of consuming, instead of some other productive task, which might be more valuable, let's say. But yeah, so John
We don't care
Piaget.
about that.
Huh?
We we all have those times.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, but I try to justify it. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna, this pang of pain, the guilt. But yeah, I just feel like yeah, it's okay. I'm just having like
What I
a
do in those
moment of
times
reflection.
is I grab a pen and a paper
Mm-hmm.
and I write down what I didn't do,
Mm.
and then I print it and uh, I spray my room with it.
Yeah. At times, I truly do think like that physical manifestation is like so important, because like what you see is literally all there is, like, and if you don't see the consequences of being reminded, or you're seeing the consequences, you're like, oh, you could forget it, and it really does take a lot of accountability, and a lot of risk, and trying to make change. It really is.
Yeah.
And would you say that there's any vices or any temptations that you feel like attracted to?
Uh, Eating junk,
Eating junk.
like junk food.
Uh,
Yeah, the junk food. Yeah. So last week I
mm-hmm,
was coming back from the library.
mm-hmm,
So I was there studying about for 8 hours. Okay.
mm-hmm.
So it was a personal record,
Yeah.
like record.
Mm-hmm,
So I was like, oh, I'm gonna treat myself to some a nice Big Mac.
Yeah.
I was like,
There's nothing. Yeah,
no,
there's nothing more
that's
juicy
not a
and
reward.
tasty. Oh, that got you worried.
That's digging my hole. That's digging the
Yeah,
hole.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's something so amazing about like just 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 McDonald's in general. There's something about like you never feel good walking. Like
The
you
fries,
never.
the freaking fries.
Oh yeah, the fries. I don't know what type of sauce, what type of salt they're using. Something within. I don't know. I feel like.
It's called crystal meth.
Yeah, literally, they put crack probably in there,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it got so goddamn addictive. But you always go in, like you shouldn't be in there, but and then you come out awful.
so
Your stomach
I go
definitely
through
feels
the
it.
drive-through because I'm too ashamed. So I put
You
my
can't you
foot in my
can't bear the responsibility of walking in there.
no.
Yeah, I feel like maybe people who walk in there willingly, they have already lost. They
Yeah.
have they have they
Or
have
my
succumbed.
ego is just a problem.
Huh?
My ego may be the problem. So
Yeah, true. I mean, I do think I have problems. Like I would have a big problem with eating junk. I mean, but like my health literally doesn't allow me to because I literally
mhm,
feel sick. Like after eating like some junk, even like if anything with like high sugar or high
yeah.
sodium, like my body reach like it actually I feel some physical pain and there's why there's limits. I feel like that physical like my physical weakness prevents me from like doing bad things. So-called bad things. I mean like by like drinking alcohol or
Yeah.
smoking things like that because my lungs are also weak. I've been diagnosed with asthma. So if there are any bad things, I guess this is I could look at of this as like a moment of gratitude of you know asthma is not that
Mm,
bad.
yeah.
Asthma's not that.
And
Mm-hmm.
also,
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about like rewards,
Mm-hmm.
right? So um, let's say after I finish a big project or a big
Mm-hmm.
uh, accomplishment,
Yeah.
well, mostly what I'll do is I'll stick to my routine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll still go to the gym after school or before.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on which time I start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and after, if I go to work, I go to work. And then, let's say, I'll watch a movie or I'll hang out with my one or two friends that
Mm-hmm.
I have. that I'll hang
I
out
feel
with
like
my
you're
family.
why is that like I need to pinpoint that. What do you feel I feel like these one or two people of friends that you have created is like very meaningful. Is,
Yeah, yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
And
Yeah, for sure.
how did you find these one or two persons?
Uh, I don't even remember. Wasn't at school, wasn't at work. You where? Uh, oh yeah, I was playing. I was at the gym,
Mm-hmm.
so I found one friend at the gym. So it's like my go-to gym bro.
I see. I
And
see.
uh, the other one, I think is from work.
Mm.
So yeah, these two friends are very let's say uh, they have the same direction of that I have. So uh, it's very easy to talk. Let's say.
Yeah. There needs to be a shared connection of I think like values and it's okay. It's
Yeah.
completely okay to not allow people to be within your inner circle if they do not hold like the same values. I think it's okay.
For sure.
Yeah, because it means that you just enforce you care about certain values, and automatically there's going to be a hierarchy of which you uphold. The highest good, or and things that are wrong. You also talked a
Yeah,
little
for
bit
sure.
about the antisocial aspects. Uh, what do
Yeah.
you mean? Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I like to be alone.
Yeah.
That, that's most of it. That's most of it. Like I love being just in plain silence and to like be really invested in what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I read a book for school. I'll read the book, not be reading the book, texting someone, uh, like calling someone, listening to music, like all that stuff. Like the highest distraction I'll get is if I go on the Discord study with me, or if I'm watching your streams, which I basically like, I have a like one monitor in
Mm-hmm.
front of me and like a laptop
Mm-hmm.
on my right. So I'll put the stream there, close the laptop, so I only hear the rain
Yeah,
sounds. So that's the most distraction I'll get.
it's a good way of
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so distract. I forgot what we're
Antisocial.
talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, antisocial. Yeah. So I think it's in my nature, to be honest. I've always been like that. It's not something that developed over the years. It's really, I was a very quiet child. Uh, like wasn't talking very much, um, which made me more of a type of reader person, let's say. So uh, I loved to read and to write, and that really made me like antisocial in a sense that I wouldn't have the same hobbies than other kids. Like I was still playing hockey and like being that kind of popular guy kind of thing, but not I did not want all of that, any of that. I didn't want it. I wanted to be like the that kid that goes under the radar and only let's say focuses on himself, and feel that in a sense it's kind of selfish, but in some sense it's really what made me who I am today. Let's could say that, yeah. And so yeah, I feel like I detached myself from any not social interaction because I was still going to school, but made me I was detached from, let's say, whether it be positive or negative, I was still detached from people. Then that's pretty bad in a sense, or like developing skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm still working on it till this day. So yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with, pursuing something that you think is worthwhile, um, and just being under the radar. I don't think it's maybe there is like a tendency of people enforcing that you need to have friends, you need to have network. I think the value of that is like you need a social circle that could help you, and maybe it's like the good aspects of friends. And I think like finding real friends, maybe we should also talk about how we define friendships also.
Yeah, we could do that. Yes.
Yeah, let's, because I would consider myself very um I wouldn't like, as a kid, I when I came to America, I was super all I cared about was validation and the social approval of the pack,
Yeah.
and that's all a kid wants. And I was so ashamed that, like, like even of like my circumstance that I didn't have my mom like within in America because she didn't have citizenship. Like I was getting picked up by Hispanic parents at times, Hispanic or sometimes white parents. Like it was, and then people would always ask like, "Hey, my English name David. Where's your parents? Why is your parents like this color?" It was just like, I just want to be normal, quote unquote normal, and I would
Yeah.
like that. That made me kind of be a class clown. I would always constantly. This also maybe had a certain impact on social media consumption is because I wanted to relate, I wanted to understand, I wanted
Yeah.
to
I
conform
completely
to
understand.
be a
Yeah.
part of the tribe. That tribe mentality, I think it's still very very strong. That's why I'm like easily influenced to a certain extent. But yeah, it's normal that that you want to be like accepted. But I recognize that the people that I am attracting, or that I wanted to be a part of, um, that wasn't that wasn't really me. That was a construct of just a wannabe me that seemed to be normal, but I was just creating this reality for myself, which I was comforted in, and like, oh, he's the class clown. He tries to be funny, making jokes. and I recognize that that's not really
Yeah.
important. That's not where it's
That's
not.
what you would like. We could refer to it as like you are you, and you have it. So it is like the all the let's say uh, the on you
Mhm.
that is showing. So like let's call it it. So my it was pretending to be a clown also.
Mhm.
So we have that in common.
Yeah.
We're both class clowns.
Yeah.
Um, and like having bad grades, that was cool because I didn't care and blah
Mhm.
blah blah.
Yeah.
And now that I look back at it, I feel stupid and I feel like I must have made teachers retire.
Okay.
uh,
Yeah, that's to an extreme. That is to
yeah,
an extreme. I wasn't on that level.
that's,
Uh, that's hilarious. No, but
yeah, but
mhm.
yeah. So class clowns. Yeah, we were both.
Yeah, yeah, and it was like class clown. Being a class clown is very lonely, because at times
Yeah,
you're trying your best at school, but when you go home, it's lonely times of
it's video game time.
yeah, it's video game. Honestly, I guess it's fun. Like at the time, maybe it's fun, but there's times where it's like, it's yeah, class clowns are really really lonely, and constantly looking for validation or a sense of approval. But I recognize like that.
Well, that's normal. That's normal as a kid, seeking
Yeah,
validation.
that's true.
Like, if you don't have it from your parents or
Yeah,
close friends, you'll get it from like stranger kids at school.
yeah.
So, yeah, you have like different. I don't know how many type of influence they are, but I I had a psychology class last semester, and we talked about like I don't know 20 different holistics of like social influence,
Mm,
and each one I could I could relate.
mm.
So
That's
like
fascinating.
you may be seeking validation because you have uncompleted uh, validation back in your childhood,
Mm-hmm.
or you had let's say less um, less forgiving parents, or you had less strict parents. It all come back to parents, and that is what makes me really thankful that I had like great parents, but also it makes me doubtful in myself
Mm.
uh, that I am made the way I am because of them and not because of me, and that's a very dangerous path of thinking,
Yeah.
and I don't think anyone should relate to that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think as long as you are aware that there are a lot of influences that are external, and still recognizing that there are a lot of things, at least the framework of your mind that is within your control. I think like the premise of you know believing that whatever you set out is largely determined by you.
Yeah, and that comes a bit of from nihilism, which is my favorite topic. So uh, nihilism, I think I discovered it last year in my philosophy introductory class.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to do an essay about in French it's called courant philosophique.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I don't know how to say in English. It's like a popular moment in history, which in like the philosophy of nihilism was
Mm-hmm.
firmly implanted in.
Okay.
So Nietzsche like really I don't even know what time period Nietzsche was in,
Mm-hmm.
but he made a big impact on what defines good and bad,
Mm-hmm.
and that really resonates with me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't I don't know about you.
Let's yeah.
Like,
Talk to
yeah.
me about like the good and the bad, as well as whether you believe like you live your life in a very nihilistic uh, worldview.
Yeah, ma- maybe world view in like more of a global thing, not much of a like micro interactions
Right.
type thing, more of a like global interaction in
Mm-hmm.
which like politics and international journalism
Mm-hmm.
or that stuff. I tend to be more nihilist about that, uh,
How
which is
so?
kind of weird because Stoicism is a bit different compared to nihilism. So that's really like an issue I'm trying to work on,
So explain. Can you explain a
deciding.
little bit about like how you view the world in a nihilistic point of view that it has like no meaning?
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I think uh, the way things are turning out, we are heading towards catastrophe.
Okay.
So, like, you see the war in Ukraine, you
Okay.
see the war, the technology war with China, you see the
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is the Iraq war with
Right.
the United States.
Mm-hmm.
This is it's getting crazy. I I follow mostly of the war on Twitter, which is not very uh, not a good source.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say that I like to view the world as a like a black hole,
A black hole.
because
Uh-huh.
yeah, black hole because it everything gets pulled in, like all the all the money, all the like values, everything gets pulled in and is thrown out. Like I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
I don't
Like,
think so. Can you explain
no.
further of like where it's
Uh,
getting pulled out to and yeah, that's
okay, so what gets pulled in is like all the international help. Let's say we'll use Russia for example. Okay,
okay.
so in Ukraine, you have all this support from different countries,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Like like weapons are sent, money is sent, everything that basically the minimal engagement could do. So that's what gets pulled in, and what gets pulled out is death, like little death.
Okay.
So that that basically it. So everything we do most of the time comes out bad.
Well, that's I feel like you're maybe misconstruing like the whole global thing as in every single human participates in that chaos, which is just in I'm not sure if that's true. I don't think every human being contributes like to creating wars. Like I mean I feel
No,
like
no,
we
I don't mean
mhm,
every single person. I mean globally, like
globally.
interaction between countries. Like
Okay.
from a micro point of view, like interactions uh, in like daily life,
Hmm.
there's hope. That's for sure.
Right.
Like I feel like people are kind
Hmm.
and helpful and want to be good
Hmm.
most of the time. But in like more macro view, it's not going too well.
Mm. I
Like
see.
if you watch the news, it's always bad. Never a single thing that is positive.
Hmm.
And that's where the like black hole comparison comes in.
And the black hole comparison is that what like all of the horrors and catastrophes that goes in the world is constantly being sucked in. What is it being sucked into?
Well,
Uh,
it's a
it's
metaphor, so it
uh
I don't really know, but
huh.
it's like the essence of a black hole is like matter getting smashing constantly like banging with different matter,
Hmm.
so it like pulls everything in.
Right.
So that's the scientific point of view.
Okay.
Now the Mathis point of view
Yeah.
is more uh of like all the positive getting sucked in and it never comes out because in a black hole nothing ever comes out. It's always like stuck. So I feel like all the like we often see online support or let's say donations,
Hmm.
but really, what is it gonna do? Like stop the war? No, it's not gonna do anything. Stop the war. It's to help what the war does. you know, if you understand what I'm trying to say, like the money sent
Mm-hmm.
there will help the victims. It will not help end the war.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the nihilistic point of view comes from being a bit helpless in the macro like world,
Mm.
say.
And how do you view, like, what do you mean by the nihilistic view? Do you mean that in a macro perspective that you feel helpless, or you feel like there is no meaning of oh, doing anything in like a macro scale?
Yeah. Um, well, maybe that wasn't the greatest example that I gave, but nihilistic in the sense of always trying to figure out what is good and bad. So, and most of the times, I find it bad. So, to put it very simply, that is my view. Like, if I see an event, most of the time, I'll think it's bad, and that is because of all the, let's say, atrocity of in history and all the like bad that happened. And I don't think uh, any much that anything has changed since those times.
Mm.
Because if something had really changed, there wouldn't be a war right now between people to gain control over a country. That is ridiculous. It wouldn't be happening if mentalities had changed. So
Oh,
that's why I feel like being nihilist really makes sense right now.
I see. But to kind of push back a little, what do you think about the idea that people recognizing that people, every single human being has the ability to do good and evil? I'm sure we've all made, bad decisions and evil choices, but also a lot of good ones as well. But to lump it as in like every single event, or give so much emphasis to the bad events, negating the good ones, might, be a let's say, like, maybe a possible harmful approach to viewing things, because although, yeah, there are things that are not within the current perspective, the current control, but there are ways to alleviate, as you were talking about your personal thing of your personal goal of alleviating, participating in alleviating less corruption. Like, there are things that you could do, like also exploring these topics of recognizing what is going in the world. We know that there are always booms and busts, and also cycles of the change in power, and I think Mr. Ray Dalio talks about the changing world order, like the power constantly changes as we study history.
Yeah.
And to kind of push back, I wonder whether you are taking into consideration of maybe some of the good aspects, and how we, as like in a global population, is becoming less and less, I guess, heading towards a more equal society in terms of women's rights, in terms of access to education through the development of technology, also the reduction in poverty. I mean, we do have countless of problems. We could just go on about climate change, slavery, corruption, politicians, scandals, whatever. There is no limits to problems, but it also gives reason, I think, to the good aspects of, that there are problems. What are we gonna do about it? What's within the control of, like, how we should, um understand and grasp it. I don't think it's meant for one person to bear all that burden of, like, okay, yeah, there's so many problems, so I guess
No,
there
for
is no
sure.
meaning. I feel like that limits the possibilities of what could happen, and what, the history. Although history repeats itself in similar patterns, I don't think it necessarily it always repeats itself identically. Like, maybe in different patterns, and there might be opportunity to shift in a pattern of, let's say, like, less suffering. I mean, there's probably trade-offs to that
Okay,
as well, but
so
yeah.
you're saying that in a sense, like as history repeats itself, each time it gets a bit better.
I mean,
So
I wouldn't
yeah, yeah,
say.
it makes sense.
Okay.
I agree. Like it, like the way we handle things are different. Like it's different. Uh, like if you go back to the First World War,
Okay.
uh, things were not handled properly. Nobody was prepared for it. If it were to be there was no, sorry, if there was a third world war,
hmm
well, I think countries would be more prepared. So that's in a sense of how to end it the most quickly and suffering less type of situation outcome. So uh, I will, yeah, it makes sense what you're saying that yes, history repeats itself, but every time it gets a bit better. So I would be able to go with that. Yes.
Yeah, but better might not be the right word because there's also trade-offs
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
different decisions. But
So
mhm.
less negative. So more you get more for less. Let's say.
Yeah, somewhere along those lines. But yeah, I think it's very detrimental of like recognizing that there is nothing that you could do because I truly think that like humans they're so adaptable to. I mean, we're not designed by like biology to be sitting, we're meant to be active, designed to, and we're not meant to just sit down and looking at the screens every single for days on end, years and years. We're just not built for that, but we adapt to it because that's what allows us to enjoy the fruits of labor and technology innovation, etc., etc. And it just I recognize that there are so many things that humans are capable of doing and also enduring, and I don't think like I'm sure there's going to be a lot of problems in the future as well, its own set of problems. But I think to give so much importance to like the negative aspect that shouldn't limit of like that shouldn't be a limit of viewing the world in such a negative way. But I think what I find value in nihilism is the importance of being a skeptic, right? Um,
Yeah,
I think
questioning things.
yes, it's so important to be a positive skeptic, but also being like also appreciating. I think maybe is a good one of like how I perceive all of the problems because there is so many inequalities. The more you learn, the more you recognize how deeply rooted um like problems that exist now trace back to. Like for example, I could think the first thing that pops into my head is um the segregation that black people have kind of experienced. It's kind of like a
Yes.
taboo topic almost. I feel like it's like, oh, we have not done anything wrong, but literally government have created laws to prevent uh, African Americans to participate in owning real estate. And like if there are discriminatory practices and things of that nature, you could either have this perspective of like, okay, I'm a victim and just succumb to that mentality, or second, what are you going to do about it? Like, doesn't that problem automatically give you a sense of purpose and like, okay, it's a calling for me that I have youth, I have people's power, and I want to do something about it. So I guess like, yeah, the skepticism is good of like, okay, like, yeah, what are some problems that's currently that we're dealing with, but it's like not only being skeptic but also what are you going to do about it, recognizing by being aware of the problems that exist. Yeah, I guess that's like how I
Uh,
view like escaping the nihilistic point of view, at least in my standard, because I definitely had the standpoint of nihilistic point of view, but I really felt uh that was I equated it similar to a victim's mentality.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really view it as, I wouldn't think about it as a victim mentality
Mm-hmm.
because, well, victim mentality is basically feeling like that feeling that everything is made to be against you.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like auto like, victimizing yourself,
Right.
and nihilism is more about perspective
Mm-hmm.
and to because I'm not a very dark nihilist,
Mm-hmm.
so they were to be like less dark nihilist, I would be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I, like I said earlier, I feel like there's hope in micro
Mm-hmm.
interactions, but yeah, for sure, seeing only bad is bad in itself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't view everything as bad. Most of the time, I'll see it as like unfortunate or say uh, bad, like not a really good timed event. So like in circumstance,
Mm-hmm.
and that's I don't really define myself as a like nihilist in a whole.
Mm-hmm.
More of a like a tiny piece of myself that is nihilist, and it always come back, whatever I do. So it's more of how I would put it. Yes.
Of like, so how you view nihilism is not it's more of a perspective of understanding, like creating a story of understanding the macro things that it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like an equation of the the good things
Uh-huh.
minus the bad things, and eight of them come back to a negative number. So like uh like a revenue like stake for the government. So it would be like income minus minus depend like outcome.
Okay.
So like positive minus negative. So it often it comes negative for me. Well, I think it's very objective to say that because if you count the number of like good news you get in a report on TV or on social media, you'll only find bad news. I guarantee.
Yeah, but we've
Like
also recognized the importance of these social media platforms or whatever source that you use. There are biased like sources, and
yes,
there's
for sure.
certain sources that use negative emotions. For example, I heard that Facebook utilizes or enforces. It used to have algorithms where it pushes negative content because you would engage with it more, and it's just
Yeah, for
something
sure.
as social creatures, we are more risk averse. We are uh, recognizing the dangers and
Yeah.
give it more importance because it has allowed us to survive, pass down our genes and such on. And so I think,
And
yeah.
if you look under like a Facebook or whatever platform you want, you'll see often of the comments or people being envious or bad. Well, it's disguised in like comments.
Mm,
So they would be saying like, "Oh, you're so lucky. I wish I was you." Blah, blah, blah.
mm,
But that's just a meaningful comment because you're just saying to yourself that you are not that you want to be. So social media in itself, it's really bad, but it has a very positive side. Like it makes you connect with people.
mhm,
Like if it was social media, I wouldn't have like a lot of friends, and outside of the one or two that I have,
mhm.
so it wouldn't be very famous, very constructive for me to not have social media because I don't have a lot of connection outside of it.
Yeah. And how would you state that your way of utilizing social media has changed?
Well, it I used to consume a lot of like uh, media, whether it be on Instagram or Facebook. Now I've put limits on them, so I can't I have a 20 minutes limit on Instagram. So let's say I scroll 20 minutes, then it's done for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I changed maybe from extra consumption to little to no consumption, and I use social media more in need of communication, a need of like connecting. So let's say I'll use more Discord for like reaching out and to like share interests, and I'll use like Twitter for various information, whether it be for news or politics,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of official like accounts are on there, so that's the platform I'll use for that.
I see.
And Facebook and Instagram is basically just for like extra thirst in consumption.
Mm.
So yeah.
And I want to kind of trace back to a little bit about the nihilistic point of view of the world. And if you think that there is more negative outcome, let's say, Mathis was the supreme dictator of the world, and you could create however whatever government system, how would you construct? Would you construct a utopia? Um, do you think utopia is good, first of all?
Well, utopia is utopian, let's say.
Uh huh.
So it's impossible to achieve.
Right,
Like
but do you
fulfill
think like so
everyone's
utopia
dream
is
is
something like
impossible.
perfection, right?
Yeah. So if I were to create a government, it would be capitalist for sure. Like you need income and like money distribution, but it wouldn't be like like a very draining capitalism. It would be more of a sharing and caring one.
And how would you construct that?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know, but yeah, I would try to have a system in which, because I really despise the system in which we make people who make more pay more. In a sense that you could be making more money because you work longer hours, or you work, let's say, a guy who works like for $10 an hour and works 80 hours per week, and a guy who works for the same money but only works 20 hours because he doesn't want to work, or he's benefiting from what's called here in Canada social aid. So, because it's very different in the States and Canada. Here, like the richest will pay around 45 to 49% of their salaries to government. So let's say you make 1 million income, you'll only have 500,000, or let's say 600,000. So that really constructed my like utopian values, in which everyone would pay the same like amount of taxes, except for those who are really in misery and are trying to get out of debt. So what I would do is construct like I don't know the word in English. It's called like taxes, like progresses
Progressive
taxes.
tax?
So yeah, exactly. So like let's say very poor people would pay less.
Mm-hmm.
That's basic logic, right? And like more you get up, the more it's the dispersion in which like the percentage of taxes you pay are less like dispersed.
Yeah.
So it's more of a fair game,
Mm-hmm.
let's say. So, but I don't think utopia is forcibly like linked linked with money. I think it's more about values and services, because like you would here in Canada we have free healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
which in the state is very confused. And very, I heard it's very expensive there
Yeah.
to get care.
I'm only like
So
2 hospital bills away from not being able to go to school, and you know, it's
yeah,
yeah.
that's why I think that services should be the priority. So uh, instead of using the money you get from taxes to finance giant like uh, uh, like gas companies, use it to make the student death less expensive, and use it to make care more accessible. So would you like in Canada here we have this thing called like I told earlier, social aid, which is like a monthly like money check you get for like I don't know how many it is. It's probably like $4,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps you like with your daily expenses
Right.
and stuff and such. And yeah, I feel like this should could be a lot of help to people in need in the US for like hospital bills and
Yeah.
so on and so forth.
Right. But like,
Because it's crazy that you have to like sell a leg to repair a leg. Like it's
yeah, I mean
it's
there are
crazy.
social aid programs, uh, but
Yeah,
yeah, but I'm not sure
yeah.
how extensive that is. But that aside from that point, like the ideal utopian government, what like that you could construct from thin air, how do you think you could, in your worldview, could reduce the amount of cost or the amount of crazy havoc that in terms of wars, the coloniz- the colonization, the corruption, how would you construct a world based upon that? Like upon your views
I don't
of
know.
you don't know?
I have no idea.
Mm.
Like I guess I would try to make um less centralized uh institutions,
Mm-hmm.
so make school less like centralized and like a bit more accessible, I guess, because education is the key factor to learning about finance, learning about how to be not get like carried around by, by bosses.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like making education more accessible really would be my priority.
And how
That's pretty, yeah.
how would you think that education is a key component of creating an ideal utopian state?
Well, I don't even know what utopian really is, but more educated people makes more sense,
Mm-hmm.
like, I believe, because if you throw a bunch of like non-politically formed people
Mm-hmm.
in a room and try to make them form a government, it's gonna be crazy. Like
Yeah.
the funds are gonna go nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm trying to say. Trying to be making the point here is that like money should be less centralized and more like into institutions,
Mm-hmm.
so that like school and healthcare is more accessible for people.
Yeah. And
That would be my utopia. Like, yeah,
I wonder if the current state of where the world as a whole is headed is towards that um question. Because also I have very limited knowledge of politics and the law. That's why I ask
yeah,
if
me too.
you yeah, but it's something
I
that's
had
worth
like two courses of politics and one course of law in my last semester, so I
mm,
don't. Like, I have a very strong base,
yeah, yeah.
but I can't like inform you properly about like let's say government relationships and
Mm,
and so on and so forth.
mm, I see. It's okay because I think it's just being aware of where we are headed and just being curious about it. I think is the first step. What would you state?
Yeah.
What's your views on freedom? Do you think true freedom is possible? Let's actually talk about what freedom means for you.
It's actually linked with education also.
Mm.
So I think freedom is because my mom used to say when I was a kid that like school is your passport for life.
Mm-hmm.
So like it makes you go places,
Mm-hmm.
and I think well, freedom isn't essentially the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
but I would say freedom is more of a luxurious uh, aspect. So you'll have like constraints, which is the opposite of like freedom. We agree on that. So you have constraints, which could be like work or obligations or money or uh, let's say family care. And on the freedom side, you have like financial freedom, so you don't have to work 7 days a week, 40 hours to get the to provide the needs for your family,
Mm-hmm.
for example. So that would be a kind of freedom for me. Also, I think that by knowledge you can accomplish way more than you think. So freedom would be using that knowledge to make things greater. So I think that freedom really lies in in financial freedom and knowledge.
So financial freedom and knowledge are key components of what makes freedom.
Well, for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very personal view. And to be honest, I'm 18. I don't really know what freedom could be for me in 2 years, in
Mm-hmm.
3 years, in 4 years. Like maybe if we do a second episode in 2 years,
It'll be a
uh,
different. Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
have a beard. I'll have a beard, and
Okay.
and maybe I'll be in law school. So maybe I'll have a completely different
Perspective.
view on freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, perspective, exactly. And I think it's like a battle of mixed feelings, emotions, and constrictions, which are making like freedom. Because someone who has different constraints,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
will have different kind of freedom in mind. If that makes sense.
And by constraint, you're talking about, I guess, imposed restrictions. That is involuntary.
Yeah, well, about like let's say death, debt, death, debt.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty different.
Yeah,
Debt,
yeah, yeah. That's
uh,
interesting.
debt.
Yeah.
Uh, you have also work. Well, constraint. I think it's what binds people from freedom. Like it really keeps them from accomplishing what they were meant to, let's say, be doing. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's like a utopia. Freedom basically refers to like your ideal life.
Mm-hmm. I see.
I'm really trying to think deeply here. Like freedom could lie into, yeah, your ideal self.
Yeah. For me, I view freedom in terms of like three baskets, and I believe it's something like a state that you have to maintain, something like happiness. I think anyone could be happy. I've seen, people who really don't have a lot, but with, the power of gratitude and somehow just finding beauty within the suffering. Although that sounds like I'm romanticizing it a little, which is
Yeah,
wrong. Like there's still, I truly think it's a perspective as well as, but freedom within the baskets that I put, which is number one, location freedom, number two, financial freedom, and I guess the last freedom I would constitute is meaningful work. Um,
yeah, for sure.
and these three things, financial freedom, location freedom, and also meaningful work, it truly is a luxury, and not a lot of people has this access because of, let's say, so-called constraints. But I do think it's something that you have to, like, worth striving for, and that it's a state that
Yes,
you also have to maintain. That's kind of how I
Yeah.
perceive.
So you're saying like meaningful work, like I would put meaningful work outside of constraints because work could be a constraint, but meaningful work I don't think it is because meaningful in the sense of like you wanting to do and it makes you feel better, or you wanting to like accomplish a purpose,
Yeah, I guess
like
it's some.
meaningful,
Hmm. It's something along the
like
lines.
meaningful in what?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, like you mean meaningful in what sense?
Meaningful as
Like
in you're not bound to do something that you don't like. Most people have jobs, like
okay,
not careers. There's a differentiation between the two. But if you have financial freedom, which means all of your basic needs are met and that you could provide, um, then you're not tied by having just a job. Number two, location freedom, as in you're not tied by a certain geographical location. You could be
yeah,
anywhere. And then number three, in terms of, I guess, the freedom of pursuing things that you truly enjoy. And this could be meaningful work in terms of relationships, whatever that you pursue, you're not, I guess, bogged down by external forces. And yeah, I do think like freedom necessarily it's not a utopia because people do get to these three baskets that I do refer to, but
yeah.
I think it's
Minority of people will.
exactly, exactly. But there are ways of achieving these three things, and it's very worthy of, and it's
And
okay
that's your
to.
strive. You're striving for it.
Yeah, I would state that the number one goal that I base the current freedom that I'm chasing after is the financial freedom, and that requires playing the games that is set. Some of the constraints is like by participating in, let's say, the so-called status game. Uh, I plan on, like, leveraging the the so-called titles in order for me to get to certain positions, and then leveraging that to build like credibility. There's like different steps that I have constructed in order of like playing this game, and that I have to participate it because if there it's kind of like a that's how it's designed, and that's how I perceive it. And of course, like there's other ways of also achieving this, but at least like how I play it, it's by the constraints that has already been set and from like what I know.
You have to beat the game. You have to beat the game.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you have to overcome the final boss.
Yeah, and I don't know if there is a final boss. Like we could talk a little bit about um the materialistic. Well, I guess like there was a problem with capital. One of the arguments was that capitalism it believes, or maybe this was like a social someone who studies social science, like a social scientist who stated that happiness is derived within capitalism, uh, as in the more materials that you get, the more happiness that you derive. But that is clearly not true, because we have seen
Well,
researches where after a certain level of income, let's say 75K to 90K, I think that those are roughly the estimates, your utility, the welfare of that you desire that you get from more income, it doesn't translate. The more you get, the marginal money that you get, it doesn't translate equivalently.
yeah,
And
yeah. So you're saying I heard that also, like upon a certain point of wealth, you're not only satisfied by money, you need more. So that could be, let's say, buying. Uh, you could have 1,000 houses, but no home.
yeah.
That's the thing that like I really believe in. You could have 1,000 houses, but no home.
Hmm.
Like having a home, like where you cherish people, is very important. But well, I'm saying that like in my parents' basements, but like I couldn't really believe in like in a system where you buy homes like this, and you get everything that comes with it. So that would be having a family in it, having a happy family in it, and feeding your family. So I think that upon a certain point of wealth, you have to like compensate uh to fulfill that like happiness that you're searching with money. And when it's like money is saturated, well, you have to uh, find something else.
Yeah. And there's trade-offs to every single like choice that you know make. Maybe by pursuing a certain goal that you're foregoing certain, you know, you're making certain sacrifices. There's opportunity cost to like everything that you usually like take upon. And I guess like uh, as a kid, I strive for materialistic wealth because that's what I consumed, and I viewed.
Well,
Ha-
kids do.
yeah,
Yeah, all kids pretty. I never seen 7 years old say, "Oh, I want freedom and value." Like they want the new Beyblades and Pokemon. That you understand what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
yeah, it's very tough to develop like value at a young age. But
yeah.
you what you were you saying? Uh, that like value
Mm-hmm.
comes with time.
Value comes with time. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if values come with time. I think value comes from something along the lines of like moral compass as well as how open you are. As long as you're willing to, once you're ready to listen, once you're ready to learn, the teacher arrives. And, and I'm pretty sure Gandhi stated this. So and I truly do believe that if the person is ready to receive, that you know some of these wisdom that you know constantly flows from people to people within the values that they portray in their daily life, it gets kind of passed upon. And
Yeah.
like the important thing about value is that it's so easy to tell it to others, it's so easy to be aware of them, but the practicing aspect is truly hard. And I do think that challenges and the confrontations of your character development is during challenges because that's when your values are tested and it reveals
Yeah,
a
for
lot
sure.
about yourself. And there's moments where I have not lived up to my value. There's times where I conformed and felt a lot of guilt and shame of you know that ideal picture that you have constructed of how you should behave and how who you should become. And when that gets eroded or when that doesn't meet, that the pain lingers because you usually have an expectation, and when expectations are not met, that's there's a there's a gap within what you perceived and not getting that reward. It you feel negative emotions on it.
Yeah, deception.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah. So let's go back to like talking about freedom. Would you state that true freedom? How would you like not true freedom? Would you say freedom is possible based upon how you described it as financial freedom as well as knowledge?
Well, it's like I said, it's a minority of people who will get to that state of financial freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Because to be financially free, you have to have a like very big source of income or multiple like smaller sources. Um, and where people I think fall short is mostly because of like casual issues. So there will be like a hospital bill to pay, like a surgery to pay. There will be like oh, I want to go back to school to form myself and
Mm-hmm.
have a like big diploma.
Mm-hmm.
I have to pay how many like a lot of thousands of dollars, and you I don't know exactly the cost of university in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
but I heard it's a lot. So uh, I think that a lot of like obstacles and constraints bind people from getting to that state. So yeah, a minority of people will get there for sure.
Yeah, but it is possible, which I think it goes back to the
Yeah,
whole idea of hope.
I find it's possible if you have the right
Mm-hmm.
circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about May 68?
For sure. It's a
It's a French
okay.
revolution
So
led by, I believe, students.
yeah. So it's very different from the States Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the American Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Um, French is a very like conservative language.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn when you go to school in French, you learn different like classics.
Mm-hmm.
You learn like different uh, like way of looking at one topic,
Mm-hmm.
and where that all came from is the like explosion of I'm gonna say it in French, English. So I think it's called uh, locked up, locked up like places. So you have like school, hospital, work, like the workshop. You have stores, you have grocery stores, all that stuff. It's all in the like locked up spaces. So where the revolution came in is trying to make those places open. So make every like I told earlier,
Mm-hmm.
like make everything more accessible.
Right.
So school would be more accessible. So yeah, I studied it May 68 in a dissertation that I had to do, and it went terribly wrong
How come?
because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's the bad grade I had a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I studied afterwards
Mm-hmm.
to understand why I had done so bad, and it turns out I studied the wrong event.
Oh, so it wasn't May 68. It was a complete different
Yeah, it
issue.
was completely different. May 68.
It was what?
So it was May 68, but
Uh,
another event.
oh, there was another May
So
68, or
yeah, yeah. If you look it up, you'll find it. Um, so yeah, far left. It's an event that occurs because of like far leftist
mm-hmm.
students. So there was during that time, people were like students were studying a guy named Jean-Paul Sartre,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very far left
Mm-hmm.
writer, which writes about like absurd and like how the world is absurd and how we could change it. So like protests, like some protests formed,
Mm-hmm.
and basically nobody was going to school anymore.
Yeah.
So that's like the whole event. But it was really a cry for help in a sense that it was like we want change and we want it now.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that no one was going to school anymore really made a big impact on the government in place, which I think was the third or fourth republic of France at
Mm-hmm.
that time. So yeah,
Yeah, I believe from like what I have, it's 22% of like the total population at the time was going on a strike. And
yeah,
you
it
stated
was
that this was something very like important, right?
yes, it like because of France, like Canada, it was called Nouvelle France before.
Mm-hmm.
It was called New France before the uh, British uh, like and conquests, I guess.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, it turned out that like in Quebec where I live,
Uh huh.
we still speak French,
Right.
but like it's very like easily confusing for outsiders
Mm-hmm.
because they come in Canada thinking that everyone speaks English,
Right.
and then they arrive in one of the most in the second biggest country in the second biggest city in the country, which is Montreal,
Mm-hmm.
and we all speak French there. So
Mm-hmm.
people are confused,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, oh, we speak French here.
Right.
Yeah, we speak French.
And the reasoning behind that is because of May 68.
No, like it had an impact in French schools,
Uh-huh.
which we like it changed the way like French was taught. Like
Okay.
uh, it's very like subtle the changes.
Yeah.
So like here we had the protest in 2012,
Right.
which is a couple of decades ago,
Uh-huh.
and past 68.
Mhm.
So like we still feel the impact of that like that month
Mm.
uh, to this day in French school because it really made us resonate with the situation in France.
Mm. I see. And what was the resonant points that you guys felt within?
The language, the language, because French is because you go in North America, you'll speak English everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll see a bit of French every like you'll see French a bit here and there, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where May 68 really made things more interesting for French people because suddenly we had like an identity to follow, which was the French one.
Mm-hmm.
Like and but as like Quebecers,
Mm-hmm.
we have a very like strong uh, feeling of independency
Right.
towards France, and still we are to this day we belong like
Uh-huh.
the whole country to British. So like pretty outdated, I would say.
Wait, so Canada is still owned by the British?
Yeah, it's we are
Part.
uh
Uh-huh.
yeah part like it's I don't know it's like a part of because the French lost the battle against the English
Uh-huh.
and therefore they gained control over uh, Canada.
Right, but why do you guys still speak French?
Identity crisis.
Identity crisis. So you guys are confused whether you guys are owned by uh
So yeah, we're a colony of British.
the United Kingdom,
Yeah.
and but still you guys are having an identity crisis because of the impact of
Well,
uh
it's a we like don't get me wrong here. We're independent there, but we still have like a on paper we're
uh-huh.
still a colony,
Right.
which is very outdated. So yeah, French. I don't know how it survived, but it survived. Like
Yeah, I guess French
as long
people
as I can
are
remember, we
uh,
speak French here
yeah, yeah.
every single day. Like
Yeah, I
it
think it's
survived.
just like the lack of my competence in like the history of Canada because we don't learn well, at least
Yeah,
with my education I didn't learn it. So I'm just curious of like how did French end up because I mean if I could from like my limited knowledge like I for how I view Canada is like oh my gosh this is
yeah. So to be more precise, we
yeah
are a constitutional monarchy.
yeah that's so that's
So
uh-huh
so like United Kingdom
mm-hmm.
is used to be a monarchy.
Uh-huh
So they had us like a as a colony. So now we're not a colony anymore. We're just like a because in the constitution we are, but not in fact. Like we have our own prime minister, our own provinces,
mm,
but on paper we are a constitutional monarchy.
I see and why is that so allowed on
Well, papers. It's on paper.
yeah it's on paper
It's
and that doesn't that imply like UK has a significant impact on
no,
the
no, they don't have any impact.
oh,
Like the, it could have an impact on the like the money value, certain way, with like bank banks relationships,
mm-hmm.
but otherwise there is no ties there. So like we're just like on paper a constitutional monarchy,
Mm-hmm.
but very independent country like as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And like since as long as I can remember, every government that comes to power promises like uh, to make us like a republic,
Mm-hmm.
so like the United States, but never happens. That's because uh, we have someone who's called the uh, it's called the gouverneur général, so the general governor, I guess. So it's like a representative of the United Kingdom
Yeah.
that sits in the like, office
Uh-huh.
and like passes the bills and stamp stuff, sign stuff.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. It's the only power that uh, British, like United Kingdom, still has on us.
I see. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating to learn about
Yeah,
the that on paper UK is still, uh, but it still owns Canada, whereas Canada has its own like unique identity with its own governmental system.
yeah. The Governor General is Mary Simon. I don't know if you heard of her.
Never. I'm
Yeah, Mary Simon, and so our like big boss is Charles III.
And what does he do? He's the big man of.
He does nothing. He's just a king.
Oh, he's a king. You guys have kings up
Yeah,
there.
he's the king. Yeah, the Charles III.
Charles King. Wait, isn't that UK's?
Yeah,
But wait, but you guys also treat him as the king?
yeah, he's our king.
Oh, right, because UK owns.
Constitutional. Yeah,
Right. Oh, I see. I see. I see. Are you quite
but
involved
the
with
king.
like keeping updated with the stuff that goes in
No,
UK? Oh,
like the climate here is very, very against monarchy.
okay.
Uh, and because Canada is a very it's a country of that's leaning toward like social science research,
Hmm.
and we have a lot of famous psychologists and like Jordan Peterson, for example, or like breakthrough into social sciences. So therefore, so forcibly, social scientists don't like monarchy.
Mm,
That's one point for sure.
I see. That makes sense. Yeah, and they have a lot of,
Yeah.
I guess, like influence in how, I guess, how the world is created. I, okay, let's talk a little bit about. There's so many things, but I feel like my mind is just shutting down today. I don't know why. It's probably because I also had an earlier talk. So my apologies for the lack of like
That's
my
fine.
brain being stimulated. Um, what do you consider truth? We just talked about.
Jeez,
Huh?
that's a big question.
What did you say? These?
That's a big question.
Oh yeah.
I said, geez.
Oh. Yeah. What do you consider as truth?
Uh, well, truth. I think it's well. Let me think a bit. Think- it could be found in like because I try to stay down to earth, like to earth,
Mhm.
and not be like into the clouds thinking about like utopia and stuff
Yeah.
and so on. And I try to stay on earth, and what I consider through Jesus, I can talk.
It's okay.
What I consider what I consider is being true is like daily like objective facts. Like it's a very black and white definition,
Mm.
but it's like what I find most reliable,
Hmm.
like daily facts, observations, facts.
Got it. So under that assumption, evidence is almost necessary for it to be considered truth.
Yeah, if you like throw around knowledge without like if the teacher starts the psychology
Hmm.
course and he doesn't have a PowerPoint or
Hmm.
like a paper who's that's backing what he's saying, I'm not gonna believe him. Like
Mm.
if I don't have a book that's proving me that
Yeah.
he's right, I'm not gonna believe him
Mm.
because that would be being naive.
Mm. Okay, and now I want to jump into this idea of religion. Now, do you think that religion and science is compatible with each other?
Uh, well, last time I told you that there was a thing called theology, I
Right,
think,
the study of,
that was mixing, like, it's the study of religion.
right?
Um, to this day, I don't think religion should be a thing mixed with science, um, because the dogmatic view of religion is very frustrating, and it spreads so many disinformations about uh, like biology or daily facts. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't stress this enough. It's like spreading misinformation, and then there's those people who blame like the government for spreading misinformation when they believe in something that they don't even know if it's true.
Mm.
So that's the thing. It's kind of a very hot take,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't believe science should be mixed with religion. Now, I'm not saying religion shouldn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Religion is a thing of its own. It's complete. It should be there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
people have faith
Mm-hmm.
in religion.
Mm-hmm.
Science isn't there for the same reason. Science there is there to explain things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have physics, you have all those things,
Right.
like maths. You have like chemistry, by so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
They all explain my micro part of life,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have religion, who tries to explain everything with one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think religion fails, is to explain concept, like explain deeply a concept.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think both are equally important, but I don't think that they should be mixed. That's my take.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, if religion is mixed with science, then it could lead to the field of subjectivity, uh,
Yeah,
and
subjective is my enemy.
yeah, and you like to be
Yeah.
very objective in terms of what is considered true in terms of recorded history or a certain evidence that something is true through tested trials.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, another question I'd like to challenge is we know that facts, it doesn't really tell you, you don't get an ought from an is, and
Yeah.
facts don't tell you how one should live. It gives you, let's say, evidence, or that's so-called truth, but how do you think it's possible to live without any belief? Like I feel like religion is directly like interrelated with faith and
Uh,
belief. That aspect is strong. Do you?
well,
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
like I told earlier, uh, I think I said religion shouldn't coexist,
Mm-hmm.
but it should like coexist in a sense of fulfilling that purpose,
Mm-hmm.
in which where science comes in is where you're like asking yourself, oh, why am I bleeding internally?
Mm-hmm.
That's maybe because you got shot, or you got
Yeah.
got got hit.
Uh huh.
It's not because you did something wrong and you lied to someone that you're bleeding
I
inside.
see. I
It's
see.
because you
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a fact.
Right. Right. Right.
And then there's like belief. So, oh, I hope I'll recover. I hope I'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's completely different. Like, you have like hoping, which is partly like relied within religion.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I think both serve a purpose, and both serve to explain different kind of situations. And I think that's what makes them both beautiful. Like, religion is beautiful because of all the beliefs and all the like diversity in it. And It's beautiful in a sense of how it can change someone's life
Mm.
by giving them purpose.
Yeah.
And science is beautiful in a sense that it explains uh, what the eye can't.
Mm.
Like it explains so much, and that's why it's beautiful, I think.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my hot take.
I wouldn't consider it like like it's such a controversial thing because I think everybody recognizes that almost it aids within each other. I would argue that it is compatible with each other in terms of like religion providing like the moral aspect of things that maybe science cannot be able to provide.
Yeah,
Maybe it's a little naive to maybe view that, but if there aren't ways of explaining there needs humans have a tendency of using the tools that have been granted, and religion
yeah,
could
for sure.
definitely provide a framework of morals to kind of how to behave properly in the world, not just with just mere facts. um
Yeah, but not only it provides like value and let's say purpose, but it goes beyond facts. I feel like
mm,
it goes like more into deep thought thought processes,
mm-hmm,
and once you like get all that stuff in you, like all that deep like beliefs and the fact that you want to be good and not make bad decisions and stuff and so on and so forth, like all that stuff goes into your brain and changes you,
mm-hmm,
I feel like. And that's where science is failing, is the belief, because who's not going to believe in science? Everyone does, but most of the people do.
we can't say that
uh
about flat earthers, I think. They're
yeah, flat earth, that's
so
something else. Let's not talk about that,
okay.
they don't deserve attention.
Uh,
Like,
okay, but I
are you
think
a flat earther, Jen?
I
i'm
mean
gonna
maybe I mean I
i'm gonna
haven't
leave
really
right
been
now.
up to space right now, so I mean it is a definitely a possible thing. I've seen pictures, but there's a whole conspiracy that the how is a person on the moon, how could the flag be flapping if there was no air? I really do ponder about these possible scenarios of where the Earth could be possibly flat. We cannot discredit some of these things. Maybe it's
Let's
just
not
true.
do that, Jen. Let's not do it.
Okay,
Let's not do it.
maybe I think there's something admirable of people who believe in conspiracies. I mean, it's just the belief
Yeah,
in general is fascinating. Um,
it's just funny. It's funny.
yeah, it is. There are a lot of comical like elements, but there's yeah, it's it's part of the joy. But would you state
Yeah.
that you personally believe in a higher power, like that there is something like more?
Um, higher power, maybe not, because I think I firmly believe in humanism.
What's
So I
humanism?
think that yeah, it's a French literature thing thingy that I study.
Yeah.
So it's the like the main messages in the literature is that as human we
Yeah.
are responsible for our own destiny, and that we are the
Mm,
one that make a difference. Like we are the one. Like if something bad happened to us,
yeah. It's
we are
because of
responsible for
I
it.
see.
If something like we are responsible for everything.
I see.
Like it's pretty extreme,
Yeah.
but I find that this view really puts like a lot of weight
Mm,
on my shoulders,
yeah.
because I feel like every time something bad happens, it's because of me. Well, maybe that's the that's the truth, and I don't want to see it. But I feel like believing in humanism is better than believing in a higher power,
Mm,
in a sense that it's gonna make you more responsible and more uh, in touch with your actions, I guess.
yeah. I asked a question of like higher power because for me it's something like related with the meaning of life. Let me ask you this question. What do you think? I mean, maybe you've already answered it because you said you're still seeking for it. But would you state you have an answer to the meaning of life?
Well, for now, my answer is um, my purpose on Earth is to maximize my potential to help and to reproduce. That's the most basic, like, that's my advice for people who don't know their purpose. Like, just stick to the basics. Like, focus on what you were born to do, that is reproduce and provide for babies. That's like the most basic
Are you just
thing
telling
you
people,
could do.
young people, to just go reproduce? Like, is
Like,
that what
go,
you, I think that's very
no, not
dangerous, isn't it?
forcibly young people.
Huh?
Not
Not
young
young.
people, but
Right.
people who are seeking like a purpose. Just go refuse to something
Go
productive.
reproduce. I don't know if that's that's some sage advice. I think it's really important to also be aware of your, financial situation. I think those
Yeah,
elements are important. But I see what you mean. I see where you're coming from. Like that,
like stick to the basics.
like stick to primal instincts.
Yeah, be primal.
Okay. Okay, maybe. Yeah, it's a interesting take. I think it's a cool way of thinking at it. But you're still I forgot where I was going with it. That's
Yeah, purpose in life.
yeah, purpose in life. Something
And
that you're constantly
I
seeking.
said about something about to help others and to fulfill like basics, uh,
Reproduction.
biology,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
purposes.
Yeah, reproduction is super key. So, how would you state that? Yeah, what's your goal of how do you reproduce? Can you give some tips on possible potential
What?
people who are lost? How do you can you give some sage
Want me
advice?
to teach you how to reproduce?
No, not like how do you find there's a lot of obstacles that comes with mating and reproducing. So how would you state?
Oh well,
Yeah.
I think finding someone uh, who's on the same page as you.
Mm.
So
So they also want to
if you
be
have,
able to reproduce. So they
yeah,
yeah.
so you have to, if you're on Tinder, you have to you have to put in your bio, animal looking for females.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you have to have the same like kind of energy.
Okay.
And well, I'm not kind of into those like shows of like romanticized uh, loves love, but I feel like love is pretty beautiful in the sense that you forget everything that's going on outside of your inside of your mind. Let's say like you're in a state of pure like happiness,
Mm. It,
and yeah, reproduction is great.
right. Okay.
I strongly agree.
It's Mathis approved. Reproduction is officially good, and especially
It's
in
great.
times of where we're experiencing population decline. So your advice for
Yeah.
people is to find someone who's on the same page, and okay, yeah, maybe this. Yeah, I don't want to go down that right. Last thing that I want to discuss is cancel culture. What's your
Oh,
what's your take on what's your perspective of the current state of how easy it is to for people to be silenced or for having
well, I
perspectives or
actually wrote
enforcing their
an essay
worldviews.
about this,
Mm-hmm.
cancel culture,
Mm-hmm.
which I had like about 14 different arguments about like why it's why it's great and why it's bad.
Okay.
So cancel culture has like this kind of control
Mm-hmm.
over people's sayings.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say in the case of Jordan Peterson, uh, he made a very like let's say very controversial tweet
Mm-hmm.
about like a transgender woman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know her name,
Mm-hmm.
um, which was uh, signaled to Twitter, and they banned him
Mm-hmm.
basically for tweeting about that.
Right.
So there's four types of like cancel. They're canceling. There is the like, when it's from the state, when it's from the social platform itself, when it's from like auto control, so let's say self control, and when it's from threats. So uh, let's say from the states, it would be like regarding what kind of books do you teach in class?
Mm-hmm.
For example, in Canada, there was a teacher who was uh, not sentenced to jail time, but it was removed from his function because he was presenting a book in which the word in N was said,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the whole essence of cancel culture. Like it it binds people within certain rules,
Mm-hmm.
and those rules are sometimes crazy. Like don't say a certain word, or don't teach a certain subject because it's sensible and it could derange someone. So like cancel culture is more of a censorship than anything. It's
Mm-hmm.
more of a protective measure, I would say, to people who are more sensitive uh, towards uh, different opinions, I would say. I don't know if you agree with that.
Mm. No, no, I'm just like learning about this because I didn't know how easy it was. Like you just by the like pronouncing an N.
He didn't even pronounce it. It was in the book.
Yeah, like
So because he was like forcing students to read the book, it
uh-huh.
was, and it wasn't a in a history class, so it it really didn't make sense. But because like uh, restricting like history books is very dangerous because people tend to then not read the book, and they'll miss a big part of history, which is important because it teaches like racism. It teaches uh, how segregation
Mm-hmm. Segregation.
segregation works. Yeah, how defamation works, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So uh, you can learn so much from controversial like books,
Right.
and you can from people too. So that's why I think cancel culture is bad in a sense,
Right.
and it's good in a sense uh, good in a sense of trying to control the information,
How's
because you don't want the information to go everywhere like
mm.
without any constraints.
Mm-hmm.
That would be crazy.
Right.
I feel like.
So I guess like the cancel culture is a problem in what it becomes a problem when people's liberty of their speech is just taken away because it seems like
Yeah,
when it's tolerated, when everything seems to be working and people are not just like removed, then the system is working. But once like I feel like maybe cancel culture arises is when something that is not of a too controversial um, is just prohibited. But it's also good
yeah,
in the sense of that it signals that there are limits of what is allowed, what type of information gets distributed. But I feel like maybe this is also it relates to maybe power, like who are the ones that are doing the
yeah,
moderating, who are the ones who get to say what type of information gets passed and not passed. But
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
And like I was saying that a type of censorship is self-control.
Mm.
So that's the most easy one to make people do.
Yeah.
So you teach them that being offensive and being and saying the truth is bad because it could hurt potentially someone. And that is
Yeah.
the worst thing you could teach someone,
Yeah.
because then they keep it for themselves and they never express anything, and then they go on Twitter and they 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 become hateful because they couldn't express themselves. And I think that in some sense, like cancel culture and
Mm.
self control provoked all the hate that is going on right now.
Mm.
Like Twitter is going crazy right now about like cancel culture. Uh, it never stops.
Mm. Yeah, I'm not
It,
to
more
do. Uh huh.
like more and more people get banned for absolutely no reason. Now that Elon Musk bought the app,
Mm-hmm.
it's different. Um,
Do you
Now they have
experience
to
the
buy.
changes that happens?
Yeah,
Yeah. What are some
what?
experience? What are some changes that you're experiencing from? I think it's been almost a week.
Well,
Uh huh.
the use of certain word became very much more prevalent So like people are less restricted,
Mm-hmm.
and in some sense they use really their thinking process to speak on Twitter. And I feel that, well, I'm talking as if it was good, it's all good, but now you have to pay $8 to have like basic features, and it's a good like bargain for Elon,
Mm-hmm.
but for us it's a controversial also.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because, depending on your socioeconomic like class, let's say, maybe
Yeah,
if you want to
$8 for
participate.
me isn't much, but for someone who's working and has to feed his kids, that's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I wonder, like, if that also, like, that maybe it's a signal of, like, to participate in discourse, it requires, I don't know, it requires capital.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
that's,
Like
mm-hmm.
I didn't really explain so cancel culture really the best that I could, but we could talk about this more
Yeah,
sometimes.
I'm not really, like, so like, I would say satisfied with, like, how I constructed, but it's, yeah, I'm for sure more open to diving into so many different topics. So don't worry. We'll have many more conversations ahead. But
For sure.
I think yeah, it's we're all the counters already at like 220. So, um, I'd like to close it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you once again. Huge thanks to Mathis for making the time, and I'll talk to you guys later.
For sure.
Bye bye.